long will you mourn over what used to be? How long will you mourn over what used to be? It's very important first to note that it is not wrong to grieve. Grief is a normal process, and it's needed in order for us to heal. The Bible says, yea, though I walk through the valley and the shadow of death. It is a process that one not only must go to, but they must go through that process. The Bible tells us to grieve, as a matter of fact, and it tells us how to grieve. Genesis records that even God himself grieved over the sinfulness of mankind. Jesus grieved at the grave of his dear friend Lazarus. We even know that Paul tells us to grieve and that it's okay to grieve when time to deal with that much this morning, but there's a danger when you want to be just like everybody else. You got to be careful. Just because there's a majority, the majority doesn't always mean that it's right.
That's right.
They say we want to be like every other nation. We want a king. And Samuel, the judge, the last judge, felt somewhat rejected. As a matter of fact, he tried to remind them that you already have a king. He's the King of kings. He is the Lord of lords. You have Jehovah Jireh as your king. And that's why you defeated those other nations and came and took possession of your promise, was because of the one that you already had for a king. But yet they still persisted, saying, give us a king. God told Samuel, they didn't reject you, Samuel. They have rejected me. He said, but now I still love you anyhow. That's the kind of God that we serve. He said, I still love you so much that even though you initiated the plan, I will pick the king that will serve and lead you. And so as they looked among Israel, God pointed out Saul, tall Saul, stood head and shoulders above any other man around. Big, strong man, a man's man. Saul is selected king, and now he starts off good. He starts off victorious, but now in the text at this point, we find Samuel grieving. Why is Samuel mourning? He's mourning because Saul has failed Israel, Saul has failed God, and Saul has failed Samuel himself. It's tough when people let you down. It can make you grieve. There's nothing wrong with you because you grieve because somebody has disappointed you. Saul started with help is on the way. Anybody know anything about God, that even when the enemy has you surrounded, you can still cry in your spirit, I'm going to hold on because help is on the way. I'm going to keep on serving God because help is on the way. And now, all of a sudden, after this good start, when things started with so much promise, now in the text again, Samuel is grieving. It'll make you grieve when things start off so well. But then all of a sudden, everything falls apart. When the marriage starts off so beautifully, but then after a while, everybody is in their own camp. When the job starts with such promise and you've been denied promotion after promotion, and people you train now, your boss, it can make you grieve. It can make you grieve when that child that you raised up, it seems to be on the honor roll and headed the right direction, but somehow or another, got hooked up with the wrong folk. Now all of a sudden such promise has been denied. Now they're happy to bring home D's when they brought home A's once upon a time. Now all of a sudden they think that being intelligent means you're acting like somebody else's race. It makes you grieve when you got off to a good start, but now things have fallen by the wayside. Samuel was grieving because even Samuel himself had anointed Saul. took a flask of oil, poured the oil on Saul's head and anointed him. But now Samuel himself is afraid of Saul. Makes you grieve when somebody you picked, somebody you nurtured, now may kill you if they have to. Samuel was afraid for his life if Saul found out he was going to anoint a king. That's why Samuel is grieving in verse 1 of chapter 16. It makes you grieve when everything that you started working on seemed to be falling apart. But you know one thing about it, understand God is not criticizing Samuel for grieving. Because grieving, again, serves a purpose. But God does ask a question. And in his question, he also makes a statement or a comment. The question is not will you grieve, but how long will you grieve? The question to me means the statement is, Samuel, don't you think you've grieved long enough about what could have been, what should have been, about yesterday? It comes a point in every one of our time when, even though it's okay to grieve, you must say in your mind, I've got to move through the process. I go through the valley. I cannot stay in the valley. I can't keep rehearsing past wrongs over and over again, drawing my energy down and changing my disposition. And now I become bitter and wonder why people don't want to be around